18. The Trial. The surface of the water was dark and smooth like black glass. Lanterns on the edges of the barge cast reflected light off the river's surface and glinted along the damp cavern walls, but the meager light could not reach the craggy ceiling far above them. Charon, the ferryman of the dead, dipped his oars in the river Styx. They heard the faint splash of the boat's movement as if the sound was a quiet plea for mercy when Khebechet approached her trial. Slowly, he conveyed the group toward the opposite shore. "Where are we going?" Issa asked. Her voice echoed into the quiet. "We were called by Ma'at and Ra for Khebechet to be judged by the Council of the Powers," Anubis told Issa. "This means that we will not go to the weighing of the heart, nor go to the high court of heaven to speak with our Father. Instead, we go to a public arena above in the open-air Colosseum, overseen by the lesser powers, our peers. The ladies of justice will oversee the trial, and there will be guests and witnesses. Our Heavenly Father will have a representative there, as he cannot show up in person. That would be problematic for all involved, because his power is so great. It would overwhelm and incinerate the lower court to ashes," Anubis explained. "Issa, you and Bastet have also been called rather than simply sent back as of yet, because you are involved," Anubis added. "This is why you were asked to dress for the occasion, and the rules regarding weapons are suspended. Because General Bastet cannot surrender the Spear of Destiny at the door, fairness dictates that everyone will be armed." Issa glanced over at Bastet. He'd finally given up on objecting to being called by one of his former living use names, and simply rolled his eyes and sighed. Issa smiled at him. He looked resplendent in his combination of formal dress and armor with golden bracers. His bronze and gold khopesh, a gift from her own hand 4,500 years of Earth time in the past, was firmly belted to his side. He carried the Spear of Destiny with an air of authority. He noticed her looking and returned her stare with an impish grin. She looked pretty good, too. Her slender frame was accentuated by white leather breeches and a white draped top held together with golden clasps in the front, so it did not interfere with her wings. One beaded braid of her natural black hair hung to one side as the rest of it fell full and straight. Gold shimmers on her white wings gave off rainbow-colored lights that made her look larger and gave her an imposing presence. She had them tightly folded to stay out of the way of the other occupants of the boat. Khebechet's white, loose-flowing dress was clasped at the shoulders and flowed around her in the slight breeze created by the boat's passage. Silver bracers protected her wrists. Issa stood beside Khebechet, who knelt in a relaxed pose, waiting for what would come. Her silvery double-sided spear balanced across her knees, and her eyes were closed. The boat grounded at a dock made of dark stone. Slippery stone steps shone faintly with dampness as they rose upward. Anubis disembarked first and handed the ferryman something the others couldn't see. "Charon must be paid his dues," Anubis told them solemnly. Bastet was next, and reaching into his belt sash, he pulled out a coin. He got out and held his hand out for Issa to help her out of the rocking boat. She spread her wings for balance on the slight waves. Issa pulled a bead from her hair. The illusion vanished when she rolled the bead around in her fingers. It changed, and Issa also handed the ferryman a gold coin. She took the offered hand to allow Bastet to help her from the boat, then guide her onto a solid surface with a firm grip. Khebechet took a silver ring from her finger and placed it in the ferryman's hand. "Thank you," she said to him, as she had the many times she had passed this way. She received only a silent nod in return, as always from the old man. She paused and looked upward when she stepped from the boat to the stone dock. The fitted stone path ahead of her led onwards until it split off to the right, leading to another cavern where the hearts of the dead are weighed. However, the path they were to take led uphill. Further ahead, the cavern fell away, allowing sunlight to illuminate their destination. Khebechet brought up the rear. She walked slowly, but with determination. Huge bas-relief bronze doors stood open at the top of a massive set of stone steps. White marble columns surrounded the building in front of them. No roof covered the entrance hall. A large flat area served as a landing pad for flyers to arrive at the other end from where they came in. It was considered rude to land inside when someone had the floor to speak. There were seats of various sizes and large booths in some sections to either side of the amphitheater. When they entered, Issa and Hasset were directed to seats from which they could easily be called to speak. Anubis accompanied Khebechet to Thoth's side, where his magic white feather quill was auto-writing as it recorded events and commentary. Issa's eyebrows rose, and she looked at Khebechet in silent question when the glint of gold on the quill caught her eye. So, that's what she did with it, Issa muttered to herself. Khebechet didn't notice Issa looking at her because she focused on the formal introductions Thoth was giving her. Anubis walked to the middle of the floor and took his place at Ma'at's side, where a large set of scales took pride of place in the center of the room. They waited while several more arrivals entered. The prime deities preceded them. However, representatives of the elder races and elementals from various planes or regions of the multiverse trickled in. Many of these would be concerned with the proceedings' outcome. Khebechet saw several friends and allies, but she noticed some stern or outright angry faces in the seats about her. The seats were nearly full when the Archangel Michael walked in alongside Archangel Azrael and an elder dragon whose box nameplate proclaimed him to be Zakri Inariel. Michael nodded in respect to Khebechet. Instead of walking to their intended seats, both archangels took their place on either side of Hasset, who already shook his head in disapproval at what he witnessed. Whispers of consternation followed when those attending noted the archangel's presence and seating arrangement. It showed clear support for the accused and her companions, a declaration from the highest court. None missed the presence of the spear of destiny held firmly in Hasset's right hand. Therefore, he would stand as representative of mankind in these events. When it was time to begin, Ma'at picked up a bell to call the proceedings to order. The crowd fell silent, waiting for her to speak. I call the ladies of justice forward. They are to with me witness, judge, and execute the orders of this court, Ma'at announced slowly and clearly. Themis, Dyke, Lusticia, join me, please, Ma'at requested formally. When the judges had settled in their place, Ma'at turned to the crowded room to speak the formalities. As you have all heard, we are here to settle the very serious matter of the opening of the abyss by Khebechet, daughter of Anubis, and the resulting escape of many formerly entrapped dark entities. Ma'at's hair shone like a raven's feathers, contrasting with her blood-red sheath dress. All eyes in the room focused on her colorful presence. Ma'at paused to let her words fall upon the ears in the crowd. She continued, You all also know, after the great war that destroyed much of the multiverse, the abyss was formed as a place to home the enemies of the divine order, truth, law, and justice. It was never to be opened until the appointed time, she said. Those who occupied the darkness were never to be prematurely released, because the elder race of dark angels swore when defeated in the last battle that they would return to bestow death and vengeance on all other life. As such, any individual or group who is responsible for opening the abyss, even in this case as with a gate from one place to another, is considered a traitor to all. This is punishable by execution and final death. Ma'at concluded. However, there are mitigating circumstances. To Khebechet's surprise, another strode forward to speak. Ma'at gave the floor to the divine principle of fate. Skuld turned a circle, scanning the crowd. Though any opening of the abyss is a dire affront to cosmic harmony, in this case it was not done maliciously, she said and paused. For the benefit of those who may not know the details, this was done for love and not chaos or violence. The one who opened this portal fought alongside the rest of us in the First Great War and saw her homeland utterly destroyed. She has not since fallen to darkness. She knows the consequences of her actions, does she not? Amaterasu, principle of divine light from Earth's Japan, spoke from the crowd. She stood up so that she could be recognized. Khebechet strode forward to answer for herself. I knew when I went down there that I could very well be giving up my existence for Isa Imdur Reindalen's life. You went in there? Amaratsu's eyes widened. I was not told this detail. Her metallic gold and white silk kimono folded gently around her as she again took her seat. Khebechet shrugged. She didn't have a reply. Yes, and she is not the only one who traveled there and returned, Skuld added. She had to wait for the noise to die down at the revelation before she could continue. A male voice rumbled forth from the crowd. Who is this rare Indalen you speak of? Khebechet pivoted and responded to the new speaker. The Jirkun Ari angel present with us today. She is my sister. Zeus laughed as if through a far-off thunderstorm. You bear no resemblance. Khebechet resisted the urge to bare her fangs. By oaths sworn long ago, by blood spilled together in battle, and by the long dance of eternity, we have become such. I speak no lies. I see. In this, at least, you are being honest. Zeus nodded. Her aura showed no deceit to the powers present. Another challenge came from a beautiful platinum blonde woman who stepped forward. The tilt of her features marked her as a non-human. The silver crown that sat on her brow sparkled with midnight blue star sapphires. She spoke in a musical tone of voice. I saw dark creatures mass at the borders of the realm of the Fae and flood into the earth realm, she said. Long ago we separated ourselves to keep the taint from spilling over into our lands from man's activities. However, our borders do not hold as they once did. The new onslaught seems to coincide with current events, beginning with when Bastet crossed the veil and traveled through our borders, the lady stated, glaring at Bastet. We hold strong for now, but the Fae people also have an interest in the outcome of this court's decision. She looked at Khebechet and continued. Our traditions have protected us for thousands of turnings. We do not forget with the passage of time the cost of failure to be ever vigilant. Are you going somewhere with this? Skuld asked the speaker. The Queen of the Fae looked at Skuld directly. We care little about how Lady of Cooling Water, the Oracle of Bast, will be punished, even though all of us know she made a grievous error in opening the land of chaos. Our concern is that these incursions will stop, and that such events do not get repeated. Anything else? Skuld asked. No, Lady Fate, the Fae said. Our position stands as stated. She returned to her seat. Another rumbling voice spoke up. With your permission, ladies of the court, the dragon interjected. The floor goes to the representative for the Guardians of the Storms, Ma'at said. Zachary Inariel stepped out into the sunlight, beating down from above, and eyed the sky. Briefly, his scales reflected the light in shades from dark gray to light cream and burgundy. I, too, have been seeing these incursions in the Earth realm, the dragon stated. There are always dark ones hanging about who attempt to subvert the balance held by the elementals. But I am concerned by the numbers I have seen lately. If the realm of man falls, many will fall. Many will follow. We guide where we can in the realms of the younger races. A massive white wolf rose from her bench and approached the floor. Long have I hunted these shadows. They breed prolifically, even as they snarl and snap at each other. Their numbers have been rising steadily these past few turnings. These incursions began long before now. The dragon's head rose proudly above the wolf's as his voice cut across hers. The dread lords are never idle, and their plans have stretched across the ages. This is irrelevant, an angry voice spoke from the crowd. The law is the law. It cannot be broken, and it cannot be disregarded. The dragon's head turned towards the speaker as his neck arched and wings mantled. Why, then, do you speak over us when we have the floor? The dragon asked calmly. Kinich Ahau, the Mayan solar deity, stood from his seat and pointed at Khebechet. We know what the Dread Lords are planning as they constantly plot against us. The point is that we are here to judge that one for her actions. I want to know why and how this was done, so that it may be prevented in the future. He echoed the concerns of the Fae. Zachary lowered his voice to a growling rumble that nevertheless carried across the audience. Judgment cannot be passed without more complete knowledge of the situation. Set would not be the holder of the Spear of Destiny without the consent of the Greater Divine. All of us here hold some knowledge of these events, but only those who were there know the full truth of the matter. Perhaps we should let them speak. Ma'at stepped forward and picked up the scales of justice. Silence spread throughout the amphitheater without the need for any further action. Thank you, Zachary Inariel, for your words. The storm dragon tipped his head forward respectfully to the Lady of Justice and returned to his seat among the elemental delegation. The spirit wolf did likewise and returned to her seat next to Coyote. Ma'at continued. We must not only confirm guilt, but decide Khebechet's fate. To do this, the accused and witness must recount the events for those of us here. Ma'at sat back down, and Dyke, Lady of Justice, stepped forward. In the spirit of mortal order and fair judgment, let Khebechet speak for herself. Come, lady. Khebechet joined Dyke in the center, who spoke to her directly. You will speak of these events as you saw and experienced them, she instructed. Behind you on the wall, where you entered, are the viewing panels. Use these to show us anything which may aid in explaining your actions, or help us to understand what happened. Khebechet nodded and looked over at her companions. Issa looked nervous. Hasset was visibly swelling with anger, but managed to stay his tongue. For now. Michael's calm presence beside him quietly communicated that his chance to be heard would come. Azrael betrayed nothing in his serenely thoughtful countenance. Khebechet smiled at Hasset, but all he managed was a slight feral grimace. 1,000 years ago, Earth time, Khebechet began. Can we get on with it? Hades demanded. I have a demanding schedule. My apologies, Khebechet told him. This is necessary to present a clear narrative. She paused and looked out over the audience. There were quite a few whose faces were closed and auras radiated hostility. However, many were simply intent on her and her words, not yet having passed judgment. Khebechet began again. 1,000 years ago, there arose a psychotic priest of Loki who stole from fate his life thread from the weave and claimed for himself immortality. With a branch from the world tree and the murder of several of his kinsmen, he forged for Loki a great weapon. It was designed to break his chains so that Loki could unleash the second great war upon the realms. Khebechet faced Hades and continued. Set and Issa, along with several others, sent the priest Ulfr to his death. The Spear of Chaos did not die with its maker. It increased in power as it devoured each unwary soul. Demoni stole the Spear of Chaos before my sister and her companions could find a way to destroy it. The artifact was then dragged into the abyss on the way to its master. Issa and Hasset were guided to the location of the Spear of Destiny, as only a greater and opposite power could destroy the Spear of Chaos. They pursued the thief through a rift in the abyss. They accomplished their task, though they were grievously wounded in the process. All of this I watched from afar. I received a vision that revealed if they, the Spear of Destiny, and the Archangel's sword were to stay in the abyss, that my sister and Hasset would meet their final deaths, and the artifacts become tools of the Demoni, the keys to their freedom and eventual domination, Khebechet told the spectators firmly. Yet, it was my love for my sister that drove me to action, but more than that, it was in defense of all of your realms, your temples, and the multiverse itself. I made my choice, knowing all of the possible consequences, and believed it to be the best course of action that could be taken. I did not have time to stop and analyze my decision. Issa was about to end, and everything would have compounded from there. Khebechet looked up at the amphitheater with her hands extended in supplication. Tears shone at the corners of her eyes and threatened to spill over on her cheeks. Khebechet stepped forward and continued. I ran to the shadowed edges of the moon paths to a ritual space that would help to prevent the spread of taint. From there, I opened the gate to the abyss. I retrieved my sister, her soul bonded, and the artifacts without the Spear of Chaos. That Issa and Hasset did destroy. After a short but intense battle, we emerged. With the help of the archangels Michael and Azrael, we closed the gate. The archangels involved themselves directly in these events? Gaia inquired incredulously. The archangels act only upon the will of the greater divine. Khebechet responded to Gaia's statement. The archangel Michael took his sword back from Hasset as soon as we exited the abyss. The archangel Azrael was able to rescue the lost innocents so they could at last go to their proper place. How did Hasset acquire the archangel's sword in the first place? Such is not for mortal hands, the irate goddess demanded as she glanced at Michael, yet shrank slightly under his answering stare. She deliberately ignored the presence of Azrael, who remained quietly observing. Khebechet responded candidly. I know not the details of that happening, as it was blocked from my vision. Perhaps the Archangel himself felt that his sword would find the best use in Haset's hands for his endeavor. I rather doubt he managed to steal it. One of Haset's hands was over his face as he struggled not to laugh. He shared a glance with Michael, who shook his head and put his finger to his lips. Khebechet continued. Your objection invalidates itself, as Haset is not mortal. Themis interjected loudly over the growing discontent of the crowd. General Haset is not the one on trial. Khebechet's actions and the consequences thereof are the matter at hand. This matter is closed until it is his turn to speak. Gaia subsided back into her seat, looking thoughtful. Well, this is all very fascinating, Hades again interrupted, but we have yet to get to the point. She opened the abyss. What are we going to do about it, and how many demoni escaped? Khebechet acknowledged Hades with a nod. Very businesslike as always, Hades. I know this court will do as it sees fit with me. To answer your second question, probably about 5 dozen Darkborn. Most that escaped were natives of that fell realm. Haset and Issa killed many more in direct battle for the Spear of Chaos. The explosion between the spears and fight afterward. We killed hundreds more and grievously wounded a dreadlord on our way out. I wish to see how this was done. Dreadlords do not go down easily, Hades told her. I am at the moment undecided. Where would you like to begin the viewing of events, as seen through my memories? Khebechet asked him. Begin with how you carved your way into the abyss, he demanded, as he leaned back in his seat, somewhat intrigued now. It will be as you wish, Khebechet answered. She turned and placed her hand upon the first of 6 viewing panels. The scene unfolded in brilliant color across the massive stone surface between 2 columns positioned so that all present could see. The audience winced as the fabric of the world was rent apart before their eyes. They watched as the gate yawned wide and swallowed Khebechet whole, the desperate free fall downwards through the darkness, and the hopeless position in which she found Issa. Wing broken and throat torn and bloodied, still Issa battled the Urgurmach back to back with Haset, even as she weakened. Some viewers jumped, and some who had more recently fought growled as another attacking daemon sprung through the flames. They watched Khebechet spear it, then fling it back into the milling horde. Many cheered as Haset wielded angel fire to kill everything within reach of the Archangel's sword, held their breath at the treacherous climb upwards, attempting to beat the closure of the portal while being set upon from all sides by shadow drakes. When the memory reached the Dreadlord's attack, it played in slow motion as Khebechet had perceived it. Most of the audience came to their feet when the Dreadlord's attack hit Khebechet in the center of her chest. Rather than go down, she quickly pulled herself together and returned the attack, catching the Dreadlord in dragon fire. By the time Haset also hit the winged Black Lord with angel fire, all were on their feet, cheering. Hades stood with the rest and watched with intent fascination through the final battle. The trio fought alongside the Archangel, who neatly claimed his sword from Haset as they emerged. Hades saw them kill many of the escaping Darkborn and watched their struggle to seal the gate. In the cold silence of the aftermath, the life spark of a tiny child cradled lovingly in Archangel Azrael's gentle hand was the last thing they saw before the panel went blank. I stand with Khebechet, Hades said into the quiet, and then sat down. Anubis smiled as he mentally began tallying the support versus those who still appeared unmoved by the emotional content of what they'd just witnessed. By his reckoning, his daughter had won over 2/3 of the council. There is still one who is absent, Anubis thought to himself as he observed the empty seat beside Sekhmet, and his grin widened. He shook his head knowingly. His sister would make her appearance at the moment of maximum drama, just like a cat to pounce when it's least expected.
I do not,
Another female voice chimed in the quiet.
I believe the only just punishment for opening the abyss is the final death. That is our law. She knew before she did this action that the consequences would be dire.
Everyone looked around to see that Athena was speaking. I also knew the consequences for doing nothing would be extreme for everyone, not just myself, Khebechet reiterated. She faced Athena squarely. What would you have me do? Just leave them down there and allow the Archangel's sword and the Spear of Destiny to fall into the hands of evil?
Yes,
Athena glared at her.
and because you release the Darkborn from the eternal trap, you must die. Your power should never be abused in such a manner, Khebechet. You are one of the powers that keep the balance, and you know better. Now, Athena, let's not be hasty.
A giant spider purred in a gravelly voice as she slipped into the floor to stand with Khebechet.
Arachnia,
Athena said with disgust.
You would disagree with me just on principle.
Of course, Arachnia answered.
But does that invalidate my opinion and my, shall we say, situation is proof that your views can sometimes be extreme?
Through the trial, Bastet sat quietly listening, watching and analyzing. When he saw the discussion devolve into petty politics, he could stand it no longer. Beside him, the archangels felt the force of Bastet's anger, so both expected it when he finally exploded out of his chair. Kenneth stood and slammed the butt end of the Spear of Destiny on the floor, sending a shock wave throughout the whole amphitheater. Y'all are a bunch of pussies blaming her. Kenneth pointed the Spear of Destiny at Khebechet as he shouted while the reverberations from the impact died down. Khebechet groaned and draped her wrist over her eyes. Now this is where it gets ugly. Khebechet remembered well Bastet's temper and dislike for politics from her time with him in Egypt. Issa gasped from her seat in consternation. She glanced around at the shocked faces in the audience and waited for the sky to drop on him. At least you had the balls to do something while the rest of y'all just sat there, Bastet continued, glaring accusingly at the masked powers before him. You judge her for making a mistake. But what about all those other mistakes and failures that led us to have to be here? Ma'at gave Bastet a stern look. Skuld remained expressionless, as she also knew Bastet's tendencies. Ma'at was the one who spoke. The floor goes to General Bastet, she declared. We will hear from a witness. Kenneth strode forward, holding the Spear of Destiny high to make a point as Arachnia returned to her seat. This, if you had been doing your jobs, would not be in my hand. Immortality of the flesh? How did I get that? It wasn't by choice. That was an accident that could have been prevented, as normally fruit from the world tree isn't left lying about. Neither was Issa given a choice when she carried me into the abyss. I agreed to sign on to this mission, but she could not give consent for facing the death that nearly took her. So what choice did Khebechet have but go into the abyss to get her? The mistake was made hundreds of years ago, and since you, the powers, are all about balance, why only now are you choosing to act of balance which you allowed to be out of balance in the first place? He demanded. Are you righting a wrong, or are you just looking for a scapegoat? Are you claiming to be blameless? A stocky god wearing a cloak of azure blue demanded. His red beard bristled.
No, I am not.
Hasset turned to face him.
Who are you?
I am Aegir, the god replied.
Okay, let's examine this.
Hasset was not in the mood to back down.
Norse god of the sea. You had the opportunity to stop this nonsense by dragging the ships under as soon as Ulfa set sail from Norway, he pointed out. For myself? Mistake? Well, in hindsight, throwing the Spear of Chaos into a volcano wasn't the brightest idea. On the other hand, it could have been much bigger boom if Mount St. Helens had waited to blow.
He grinned slightly. In the crowd, only a few noticed Pele, the Hawaiian volcano guardian, nodding and grinning in agreement. It had given her a moment of surprise, but she always appreciated a good explosion. She hadn't even been in a bad mood that day.
Hasset continued. By the time Khebechet acted, the balance and laws you all hold so dear had already been broken. It should not have fallen to her. It is not her pantheon. She wasn't even involved in the whole Ulfa mess. The only reason she got involved was because of Issa, who was not in the abyss of her own free will. Who, then, if not Khebechet, was going to go down there to get her? Or were you going to let an innocent rot down there?
Aegir turned to Issa.
Did you give formal informed consent to enter the halls of the bottomless pit?
Issa answered so that all could hear.
I did not. I could not speak, nor write or sign. I had agreed to shift my form to that of Bucephalus and pursue the Spear of Destiny. Thereafter, even when we acquired the Spear of Destiny, I went where Hasset bade me out of trust.
Aegir sat back, thoughtful.
By our laws, that does not equate consent.
Hasset turned and remarked to Khebechet.
You see, they don't even have all the facts. How could they presume to try you? You insolent mortal!
A lightning bolt whizzed from the area where Zeus sat.
How dare you question the council in this manner?
Hasset didn't move to avoid the attack, but Issa jumped quicker than the lightning bolt and caught it sizzling across her mantled wings as she shielded him and grounded the lightning. Thunder shook the amphitheater with a deafening crack.
You will not use your weapons,
the ladies of justice shouted in unison. The rest of what they had to say was lost in the roar of white water as Aegir tossed a wave of seawater at Zeus.
I was talking,
Aegir shouted at Zeus. Only he got everyone else on that side of the amphitheater wet also. The only one who looked happy about that was Zakri Inariel. The storm dragon spread his wings, enjoying the water cascading down his wings. Pele, who was sitting just behind the dragon and was thoroughly soaked, angrily threw magma at the god of the North Sea. Hearing the sizzle behind him as water evaporated in the heat of Pele's anger, the dragon ducked, nonplussed at the return volley. Hasset merely stood shaking his head, with Issa standing beside him. Her dander was up too, and it showed as all her feathers were on end, expressing her anger. Her wings extended to their full 20-foot length as she interposed herself between the angry gods and Hasset, who was attempting to push her out of the way so he could see.
Would y'all get out of the way? They're trying to squish you, Issa bit out through gritted teeth. I can take care of myself. Now move, Hasset said with frustration.
Khebechet was torn between laughter and mortification at the behavior of her fellow deities. Watching the situation above rapidly devolve into a brawl, she took out her spear, planted it on the floor, and formed a protective silver dome over all three of them. It took shape just in time as rocks formed from the clash between lava and seawater rained down on top of them. Khebechet remarked in a low tone to Issa and Hasset. At least I got dinner and a show before my sentence gets carried out. Hasset started laughing, despite himself. Issa began to calm with their temporary safety. She grumbled as she folded her wings down tightly. I fail to see anything amusing. Yet more rocks and other less identifiable debris impacted the shield. They've all lost their marbles, she added. Which is what's funny, Khebechet giggled. They're trampling over more laws than I have. Exactly, Hasset agreed. They just proved my point, he said, his voice tinged with disgust. Just at that moment, the door slammed open with a crash that reverberated through the entire building. The fight ended abruptly. Everyone turned to watch the new arrival. A giant black panther strolled nonchalantly through the doors and took her slow, sweet time to boldly make her way to the floor. Khebechet dropped the shield as the cat approached. She bowed her head in respect as her friend and mentor came near. Anubis, who had been waiting for this moment, backed up and waited for his sister to have her say. Right on time as always, Anubis grinned toothily. Lady Bastet, you are acknowledged, Ma'at said gratefully into the silence won by the entrance of the mother of cats.
And what makes some of you think I will allow my priestess to face the final death at your hands?
She purred loudly enough for all to hear.
For this, you will answer to me. Khebechet, take your seat,
Bastet ordered. Khebechet moved to do her lady's bidding. Bastet strolled to Issa and ran her head under her hand.
Issa, you too, the goddess said. Hasset will be fine.
Issa hugged Bastet around her neck and nearly having to tiptoe due to the cat's size, and then scampered to her seat. Bastet faced Hasset.
You look well, General, she purred. Much better than the last I saw you.
She paced around him, making Hasset feel rather glad not to be a mouse. Lady Bast, he acknowledged. He privately wondered what her angle was. He found himself having mixed feelings. Somewhere inside him he found anger simmered, and he paused briefly to wonder at it, but shoved the emotion away as unimportant at present. He also somehow found comfort in her presence. They have proved my point, he told her.
Yes, they have,
Bastet agreed.
Don't leave just yet. You are not finished.
She turned to address the amphitheater, pacing around the edge of the floor as she spoke.
Our body of laws also dictates that none may interfere with the actions or destinies of another power's avatars, priests, or priestesses,
Bast said.
Khebechet is not only the daughter of Anubis, named the Lady of Cool Water, but she is also Ka-Ali, sworn high priestess, and my prime oracle. Thus, while I agree this court has the right to question recent events, it does not have the right to pass sentence without my approval. There is another complication with your plans to end my priestess,
Bastet told the assembled powers.
She is tied by love and by an unbreakable promise to the destinies of these two. Until that promise gets fulfilled in its proper time, she may not deviate from her path. This proceeding comes dangerously close to interfering in that proper time.
But Khebechet must be punished. Athena was still unmoved. And what would you accomplish by that? Hasset growled. So she did it. She doesn't claim otherwise. But shouldn't you be focusing on the future and not the past? And you are not counting the fact that we killed more of the demons than we let out. So how do we keep this kind of score? He waved at all of them in disgust. The whole thing is a farce.
Easy, General,
Bast purred softly to Hasset alone.
Well, I appreciate your support of Ka Ali and your willingness to fight for her fate, even as you hold the Spear of Destiny.
The cat goddess sounded amused.
We should avoid provoking hot tempers. Remember, you cannot lose while you hold the full authority granted to you as its bearer. You need not fear. The moment you stepped onto the floor, this battle was over.
Lords and ladies of the court, Lady Bast. A deep female voice rang out over their heads. May I interject? Bastet looked over to the speaker.
Go on.
Freya stepped forward, holding her naked sword in her hand, pommel up. Perhaps I can propose an alternative that would be acceptable to all.
And that is?
Bastet asked her calmly. It is true that I hold enmity for Loki and his dire plans. In that alone, I would stand with any who thwart him, Freya began. But it seems to me that we have a larger concern than mere punishment. As General Hasset has pointed out, punishment does not solve the problem of the escaped demoni. But what it would do is prevent further action by one who is, as we have seen, adequately equipped to successfully take them on and win. I have fought dreadlords, and I too know they do not go down easily. Killing Khebechet would be wasteful, shall we say, to those here who are practical.
Can we get to the point?
Hades was again bored with the entire lengthy proceeding. His own foresight showed him how this would end. He wished they'd just get on with it. Freya eyed Hades, but she was unwilling to start another brawl and cut short her speech. Put Khebechet where she will do the most good. Have her fix what she broke. Send her to Midgard in mortal skin to hunt demoni there unhindered. If her path is already tied to these two, who must return to earth, send her to be with them. The Jirkun Ari class angel is herself hiding in human skin. Issa, in this case, Mary Lou, is of the appropriate age to be the proper vessel, and she is strong enough to bear a demigod without it killing her. Anubis can oversee these matters, as it is his daughter he will send back through the veil. Issa looked up sharply. Wait, whoa, what? It is simple. Love triumphs all else, Freya declared. That is the greatest law of the greater divine. I, for one, will not take on the karma of disrupting the natural course of true love and soul bonds, whether they are, or are not, romantic in nature and fulfillment. Never in the history of the multiverse has that action ended well, Freya pointed out. I stand for Khebechet, she finished simply, and returned to her seat. Issa stared after the goddess open-mouthed. Do I have anything to say about this?
Of course you do,
Bastet said before she was interrupted by a sharp cry from Khebechet.
No,
Khebechet objected. Never again. Her talons bit into her palms, spilling bright blood on the floor. I have been too many times, and it often takes centuries for me to put myself back together again. Let me hunt as I am. I don't care how long it takes, just don't send me back. Anubis stepped from his place and laid his hand on Khebechet's shoulder. With her father's presence at her side, she quieted and attempted to restrain the wild energies flaring around her. Khebechet speaks truly. Seldom has she returned to us having died a peaceful death, Anubis spoke sadly. To die a warrior's death is a great honor. Have you lost your courage? Tyr, from the Norse pantheon, challenged from his seat. Khebechet laughed, a hollow sound that echoed with despair. No, I faced the abyss without flinching, but to be stripped of power, of memory, and sent to the non-existent mercies of man absolutely terrifies me. Very rarely am I given the warrior's death in battle, or allowed to live my natural span as it should be. Brought down by treachery, bound and tormented for days or weeks. That is the fate that has awaited me there. Freya stood from her seat once again. In the spirit of fairness, show us. Naturally, we should have all the facts before proceeding. Khebechet's hand shook as she threw her memories to the viewing panels for all to see. This was my most recent incarnation. The bright gold of tall grasses stretched as far as the eye could see. Stalking forward, her golden coat and black spots blended in well. The cheetah slipped between the dry stalks, her eyes on an antelope. The rumble of a truck shook the ground beneath her paws. She paused, slinking lower to the ground. The foreign sound of laughter touched her ears, and the truck changed course. She was seen. I had cubs at the time, Khebechet interjected at this point, her voice tight so that it wouldn't shake. I didn't live long enough to get back to them. She waited until she was certain they were headed towards her before she moved. Springing out of cover, she pushed her body as far and as fast as she could. It wasn't enough. Already in motion, the truck paced her yard for yard. A loud sound, sharper than thunder, pierced the air. She changed direction, desperate to get away, and returned to her little ones. Another shot rang out, and she felt pain and heat pierce her shoulder, the bone there splintering. Her right foreleg gave way beneath her. Yowling in pain, she stumbled. The world spun out of control as she speed dove her into the ground again and again. She felt something in her hip crack as she struck a rock and lay still. There was more laughter as the men stopped their truck and got out. Panting and unable to move, she waited for them to give the killing blow. It was not quick as she had hoped. They kicked and beat her as she lay there, unable to respond until she could no longer see, and her spirit finally slipped free of her form. As the memory concluded, Khebechet spoke again. I would have understood if they hunted me for food, or if I had been taking animals from farms. I understood the defense of territory and the need for meat. But no, they only wanted my head and my pelt. The rest they left for the hyenas. Growling set up in the crowd. Wolf and Coyote's eyes gleamed with anger. Yamaya, the African goddess of fertility and childbirth, was also enraged. How dare they? Khebechet, I am sorry. Hasset spoke quietly. Most men have been taught by other men that animals do not have souls as we do. That was supposed to be a vacation, Khebechet exclaimed and rounded on Hasset. He winced at her next words. They simply killed me in cold blood. She sobbed, heartbroken with tears falling down her face. The time before that was even worse. This time she slammed her hand on the panel hard, and the scene changed. That time I was human. Did I have a soul then? Khebechet demanded. A couple of years after Joan of Arc was murdered, it was about the year 1433 by their calendar. The horrors I witnessed during the preceding 5 years led me to decide I had to do something. I was helping women and children in France and Spain escape the birth of the Inquisition as it tore across the continent. From the French Valais area in what is now Geneva, Switzerland, that holds the dread Lord Temple of Apollyon, the Inquisition spread much like the Black Death. It was an evil plague of fear, suspicion, and torture. I saved as many innocents as I could during the spreading hysteria, but it was not enough. I had a large house and grounds in Toulouse, France, near the border with Spain, containing an easily concealed space beneath the basement. Someone, one of my friends, I think, betrayed me to the church. The scene unfolded on the stone to reveal a dungeon. Torches blazed on the walls. With her hair shorn and burned up and down her bare arms, a woman lay strapped to a tabletop in a vertical position. Iron bands secured her arms and ankles with another across her throat. Blood dripped down the wood at her back and pooled beneath. A man sat in front of her at a desk. He wore an embroidered tan vest and a poofy white-sleeved shirt over breeches. His hair was cut to neck length and slicked back with oil. A large ledger sat open in front of him, and he held a quill in his hand. "All you have to do is confess, and this will be over within short order," the man said. He remained expressionless, almost clinical in his demeanor. Defiant, the woman in front of him merely bared her teeth and hissed at him. "If the hells you speak of exist, I am quite sure that you and yours will burn in it." The man turned to the guard behind him. "Again, make sure they do a better job of it this time." After she was taken away, the scene dissolved into incoherent impressions of screaming and blood. The only clear point came when a man held a burning torch to the left side of her face. He remarked offhandedly to the man guarding the door, "Witches aren't supposed to be pretty. We need to mark her up a bit more to give the crowd a good show." I had no way to know how long I was trapped down there. I remember pleading, "Oh God, let it end." They did not break me or make me confess to whatever it was they made up for charges so they could take my land for themselves. They would have tortured me longer, I think, but infection was setting in, and fever would have taken me. The scene shifted again. The woman stood chained in a cart carried by 2 guards and paraded through the streets until they reached the center of the town square. A wooden platform was set up with wood and oil ready for her execution. They tied her to a stake on the platform and set the wood beneath her on fire. I was incoherent with fever by then. All I knew was these people hated me. There was no real explanation. I was left with only fear, pain, and death, Khebechet said. Khebechet turned around to face the crowded amphitheater again and allowed the memory to envelop her form. She stood before them with her back shredded by the cat o' nine tails, a ragged tunic hanging from her body half torn away. Bone showed through the burns on her face, and bruises covered her body. Khebechet's fingernails and toenails were ripped away. They watched as she closed her eyes and the scene played out on the panel behind her. Her body blackened as the fire consumed her. As soon as the memory ended, Khebechet shook off the imprint of that past life on her physical soul body. She stood shaking in reaction, unable to speak as the trauma was too fresh in her mind. "Khebechet." A gentle but firm voice spoke to her. The archangel Azrael went to her and took her hand. "That was not the will of our Lord God Elohim. Our Heavenly Father does not condone such actions," he assured her. His face was a mask of anger. The assembly was silent for several moments, and then the noise swelled. The archangel stayed by Khebechet's side until the yelling in the amphitheater began to quiet. Khebechet said nothing further. She simply nodded and took comfort in the archangel's warm aura. Isa had watched the scenes play out in horror and found herself crying. Khebechet hadn't told her most of what had been shown. She looked at Hasset, who looked back at her and shrugged helplessly. The rage he found burning inside him at the dishonor to the greater divine had no outlet. Isa rose from her seat. "I can guarantee few things," she began as she addressed the ladies of justice. "But what I can do, I will." She paused. "My own life on earth hasn't been without its trauma to me. My right to self-determination has already been taken from me by rape and neglect, and it is difficult to suffer a man's touch or trust enough to do this. But if you send her back while I am alive, I will do whatever is necessary to protect her where she finds her feet again. I will raise her to know the principles and powers so that she can freely use her gifts to better the world. When she's of age, and the Leith no longer clouds her memories and her gifts, we will hunt together." "I, too, will do what I can," Hasset interjected. Bast nodded in approval.
"It will be well," she said. "However, Hasset, your path must diverge for a time, so that you can best use your own gifts. You can take comfort in knowing all of you will be watched over and guided when possible. For now, we must await judgment."
Freya also spoke to the ladies of justice from her seat. "Well, I understand Khebechet's trepidation. Many of our number even now live their lives with the younger race of man. Mankind as a whole must awaken, and they need their spirituality gifted, particularly at the turning of the ages when progress may arise out of turmoil. I believe this to be the best course of action given the circumstances presented to us. Midgard is at the next turning of the age, and those before us are well equipped to help shape the course of events," Freya continued. "In addition to this, Khebechet must learn to understand what happened to her, and she must find a way to forgive before she is whole. When she is ready to hunt, may she do so successfully," Freya concluded. "Lady Bast," Ma'at addressed her directly, will you, accept a term of your priestess in the Earth Realm under the watchful eye of the Jir-Kun Ari? It is this, or it is execution to the final death of personality by our laws for the crime of releasing Demoni from the abyss."
"I approve of sending her to the Earth Realm for a full life term,"
Bast acknowledged as she looked deep into Khebechet's frightened eyes. "Does anyone object?" Ma'at asked those crowding the amphitheater in her full guise as principal of justice. Athena sniffed, but stayed any further objections. The rest simply awaited pronouncement, as they knew it was practically settled. "Themis, Dyke, Justicia," Ma'at called the other judges forward. "It is time for the decision of this court." Themis came forward and placed her hand on Khebechet's shoulder. "By official proclamation, in the custom of the principle of divine order and law, the merciful and unanimous decision of this court is to stay the execution of Khebechet. She will be banished to the Earth Realm to spend a term of life there as a mortal. There she will use her gifts in defense of the realms and for the benefit of mankind. Anubis and Bast are to oversee this is done in a right and proper manner in time, so that she has self-determination and is in full possession of herself. May our divine Creator's blessings go with her. If that is the will of this court and my Lady Bastet, then I will cede to it," Khebechet formally acknowledged her sentence. At the end of the proceedings, Ma'at rang the bell once Themis returned to her seat. "This court is closed." Skuld, displaced from Khebechet's side by Bastet's arrival, pushed through the crowd of well-wishers to speak with her. "You made many allies here today, all three of you. You all displayed uncommon courage in the face of terrible odds. Regardless of her contrary comments, Athena too is impressed." "It didn't sound like she was impressed. Sounded like she was pissed," Hasset observed. "Ah, but Athena was doing her job to provide a counter-argument. Athena loves brave warriors in any age, Kenneth," Skuld smiled. "She will be watching you when you step into future battles." "Oh, you mean somebody remembers my name?" Hasset grumbled. "We all do," Skuld told him. "But Khebechet remembers you from your last contact in the mortal realm. Using your Egyptian name minimizes confusion while you accompany Khebechet and Issa this side of the veil." Khebechet added, "Like the rest, it's a use name and not your true name anyway, General Hasset," she teased. He reached over and ruffled Khebechet's hair, not in the mood to argue since they'd just won a much bigger argument. "Okay, whatever," he said. "Auntie Skuldy? What happens next?" Khebechet asked Fate. "Ah, that would be telling." Skuld fondly winked at her. "But I imagine you will all want to return to the temple to regroup and plan your next moves." "Do we need to go back across the river to get back? I want to go home," Issa said. "I'd like to rest for a while and go flying before I have to give up my wings again." She looked longingly at the sky. "I feel like a caged bird." "Home to our family sounds good," Hasset remarked. "Peace and quiet would be even better." "That's not what I meant," Issa said. "But I imagine I'll have to go back there sooner rather than later." "We don't have to cross the river Styx now. That is the only way to get here, but we can open a gate to leave. We just can't do it in here. We have to do it outside." Khebechet answered Issa's question. "If a defendant could open a gate inside the court, that would be problematic, don't you think?" "I can see that," Issa replied. Thoth moved through the crowd and nodded acknowledgment to them in passing. His magic quill was auto-writing in a Akashic record book. Hasset watched him walk by and had a sudden inspiration. "Hold on a moment, you guys." He hurried after Thoth. "Thoth?" Hasset managed to catch up with him. "Can you teach me to do that?" He pointed at the quill and looked closer. "Hey, is that—"
"One of your soul-bonded's feathers? Yes, young man, it is,"
Thoth answered Hasset's quizzical expression in as dignified a manner as he could muster. For a moment he was speechless, staring at it. "Okay, then." He struggled with the sudden mental image of Issa molting and dancing feathers. It made him almost forget what he was about to say. He shook his head, declared, "What I meant is, yeah. Can you teach me a scribe spell?" He finally managed to ask.
"You could always write things down yourself instead of relying on a spell,"
Thoth told him. Because Hasset still held the Spear of Destiny, Thoth could not read his true intent. "I don't want to write on paper," Hasset assured the keeper of Akashic records. "I want to engrave something so that I can hide it in plain sight."
"I see,"
Thoth replied. He looked at the team with his head tilted to examine him with one bird's eye.
"I think you will find that Khebechet can help you with what you desire. She has learned much over time, though she does not always use her knowledge wisely."
"Thanks," he told Thoth and hurried away. Once the crowd had thinned, Hasset managed to pull Khebechet aside. "Can you teach me a scribe spell?" "You really need to be more specific than that. There's a lot of different scribe spells," Khebechet told him. I want to engrave something, Hasset said. Something hard. Sure. Just don't write on Daddy's temple walls. He'd get mad. Hasset smiled at her with amused suspicion. There's a story there, isn't there? Well, there may have been more than a few bottles of shadow flower wine and a limerick or two involved, Khebechet admitted, giggling and only slightly embarrassed. So, getting back on track, is it metal, crystal, stone, wood, or bone? Wood, Hasset said, bumping the spear against the ground for emphasis. Ah, okay, Khebechet said suspiciously, and then shrugged. Should be fine as long as it doesn't blow you up. Again? So, does that mean yes? Hasset's eyes had a mischievous twinkle. Meet me in the temple gardens. We'll want to practice on a few sticks, Khebechet told him. Late evening found Issa again riding the air currents over to the summerland. She sighed with content as she sped over the landscape in a long glide toward the temple. Issa knew her companions were in the gardens. She flew around the grounds until she found them with heads bent together beside one of the gazing pools. What are you guys doing? Issa asked curiously. Khebechet took a stick from the ground and waved it above her head. We're writing on sticks. See? She sounded unusually chipper. I see that. Issa stared hard at Khebechet. You sound unusually. You usually sound that happy only when you're up to something. Me? Do something? Not this time. Khebechet grinned at her. I'm innocent. Yeah, okay, whatever, Hasset snickered. Khebechet pouted at him playfully. You have no faith in me. I have absolute faith that you will be into something at all times, Issa told her. She plopped down on the stone edge of the pool. Hasset looked sideways at Khebechet. She's just upset she doesn't have sticks. Issa snatched a stick up. Ha! Now I have the stick, she proclaimed. She pointed at them playfully like she was holding a sword. Yeah, but can you ride on it? Hasset laughed. Sure. Hand me a pen. Issa giggled and waved it around some more. Khebechet grabbed Issa's stick as it whizzed past her nose. Hey, that's my stick, Issa objected. It was my stick first. I wrote on it, Khebechet exclaimed. Fine, I'll get another stick. Issa let go and grabbed the other one from under her soul sister. I wrote on that one, too. The sticks clacked together as Issa and Khebechet squared off. Hasset, not wanting to be left out of the fun, grabbed 2 sticks and started a free-for-all with both of them. Anubis didn't have a hard time finding them. He simply followed the sound of laughter and clacking sounds. He smiled when he rounded the corner and saw them having fun. The change was a huge relief from watching these 3 fight for their lives. He hated interrupting, so he simply sat down until they noticed him. Hello, Father. Khebechet backed up, going still and quiet. Anubis addressed them. It will soon be time for Issa and Hasset to return to the Earth Realm. Hasset has a promise to keep. We will discuss the choices available to you from here upon your return. He turned to Khebechet. Bring me the lethe, if you would. 2 cups will be needed for after the matter of the Spear of Destiny is handled. Khebechet dipped her head in a formal acknowledgment. Ahi, my Lord Father. Khebechet turned to go, and Issa placed a hand on her shoulder to stop her. First, I have a question. What do you want your name to be in the mortal realm this time? Issa asked her. Khebechet paused for a moment, thinking. The matter of a name was a serious one, even if it was only to be used for a single lifetime. I think that Kira would be appropriate for this day and age. Kira sounds pretty,
I like it,
Issa responded. Khebechet smiled back at Issa somewhat sadly, placing her hand on Issa's, where it rested on her shoulder. Thank you. It is a rare thing to have the privilege of choosing my name. She turned away to do Anubis's bidding. Come, you two, if you are ready, Anubis asked them. Yes, I am definitely ready to go. Hasset grinned real big. Issa merely nodded, but looked at Hasset quizzically, wondering at his enthusiasm. Where do you wish to be sent? Anubis requested Hasset's formal declaration. The Vatican, Hasset replied, still grinning. I'm going to put it where nobody will find it. Anubis reached out to the arch over the entrance to the garden and slid his talons between Summer and the Earth realm, creating a bridge between the 2 points. This portal will stay open until you return, Anubis assured them. You are still on this side of the veil. When it finds itself in its resting place, the Spear of Destiny will return to the physical plane. That works for me, Hasset nodded in satisfaction. Come on, let's get this over with. Right behind you, Issa assured him. So, where exactly are we going? She asked, after they stepped through the gate. There, he pointed. Whoa, this place is huge, Issa exclaimed with a gasp. They walked through Vatican Square and entered the Vatican Archives building. A set of spiral stairs led to several areas that contained numerous shelves of old hand-copied books, glass cases, and museum-quality artifacts. They searched each room systematically. Eventually, they came across a glass case holding a spear that looked much like the one Hasset held in his hand. Bingo, Issa said. I think we found it. Yep, Hasset agreed. The cover was stuck tight when he tried the case. Just a minute while I get this loose, he said. Finally, the stubborn clasp released, and he lifted the replica out of its case. Hasset was about to lower the Spear of Destiny in place of the fake when Issa suddenly grabbed Hasset's arm. What do you think you're doing? She demanded. Where in all the levels of hell is the real one? What do you mean? He asked her with as innocent an expression as he could manage. What the fuck? Don't act all innocent with me. Look right there. Made in China. She pointed out the words that appeared burned into the shaft of the Spear of Destiny. This is the real one, he told her, and ducked as she took a swing at him. You better damn well explain yourself. I will go over your head if I have to, Issa threatened. I'll tell the Archangel you switched it. She glared at him and crossed her arms. Hasset looked at her angry expression, and suddenly his trick didn't seem so funny. But, he thought to himself, if it's good enough to fool her, this is going to work. I'm sure the Archangel knows exactly what I'm doing. Besides, do you remember in the garden where we were writing on sticks? Hasset asked her. Yeah, what's your point? Issa's eyes narrowed. Her expression cleared as she got it. Oh, you mean that's what you were trying to do? Yes, he shrugged. You could trust me better than that, you know. That's sacrilege, Issa objected. It's a Roman spear. It will be okay. It's not like it is God himself. The engraving will keep anybody from trying to use it for evil purposes, Hasset told her. They will think this is the fake. You wrote on the Spear of Destiny. Issa threw up her hands. Well, go on then. Put it there so we can go. Inscribed, Hasset said as he did what she told him. If it is good enough to fool you, then this is the best way to hide it. Now what to do with the actual fake? Put it back where we got the real one? Issa suggested. Nah, no reason to bother with that. Maybe I'll just throw the fake spear in the river. When Hasset closed the case, it took on the quality and appearance of an odd overlay to their eyes. It merged back into the physical plane of reality, just as Anubis had said it would. There. That is, as they say, that. Hasset dusted off his hands and picked up the fake Spear of Destiny, and they turned to leave.